I've shared in the past couple of days, I don't put much confidence in election polls, primarily coming from the legacy media, okay? And here's one of the reasons. All right, I want to show you just, this was 3 different networks that had polls, coming up to election day. Play clip 9.
Our final poll before the election has a 3-point lead for Kamala Harris nationally, 49 to 46.
Yeah. So we land on a 49-49 Harris-Trump tie in our final NBC News national poll.
A new CBS 17 Emerson College poll has Vice President Harris and former President Trump tied. You can see the numbers right here, 48% both.
Well, one of the few pollsters that did get it right, that showed that Trump was ahead and consistently, was Rasmussen Reports, and the chief pollster there, Mark Mitchell, has been bringing us along, and he's here to discuss this and more. Mark, welcome back to Washington Watch.
Yeah, I'm really happy you caveated that, because polling can be accurate. Turns out if you don't report up to a left-leaning managing editor. But listen, we weren't even directionally correct. We were exactly correct. Right. Our final call was Trump +3. National popular vote's at 3.3 right now. That's way within the margin of error. It's almost exact.
So first, congratulations. All right, this is what I took statistics. I studied all that in college. It's way beyond me. I don't like to do all. It gives me a headache. But I believe it can be done right. But here's my point. I think legacy media and many of those pollsters are trying to determine the outcome, not report what's happening. Am I right or wrong?
Polling is content, and when your pollsters all report up to organizations that are owned by massive corporations that have vested interests in making sure that the corporate oligarchy status quo in D.C. maintains its control, that's what happens. They are literally mouthpieces for the government, and I've proven that they shill for Democrats. I know it sounds out there, but we caught them. They absolutely cooked the internals of the polls, because the exit polling is showing that who turned out to vote is nothing like what was in ABC polls, NBC polls, like all Reuters, Ipsos, not at all.
So my point here is that the legacy media and their pollsters should not have a shred of credibility. I mean, we've seen this time and time again. This is not the first time, but you've just exposed it with accurate polling and the fact we can do accurate polling.
Yeah. They're exposing themselves, to be honest, with that Ann Seltzer Iowa call. That's probably the most ridiculous thing that ever happened in the industry. She can definitely poll Iowa because she's been doing it cycle after cycle. And she even polled it in July and had Trump up 18. Trump finished at 14, but she put up a Harris +3 result right on the weekend before Election Day, just to satiate the Democrat need for some kind of good news. She burned her credibility with a 17-point miss. I'll tell you what, I ran our numbers in the states, just did it 2 hours ago, and it is incredible. We polled 14 states, and the average of each of those states compared to the actual results, the average polling error we had, 0.8%. And of course, as a right-wing pollster, it leaned to, Harris. We were about a point to left. And if you take our one outlier there, we did a pretty bad job in Texas, underestimated the massive Republican turnout. If you take that one out, our error goes down to 0.2% in the states. 11 out of the 14 states we hit within the margin of error.
All right, Mark, let's now talk about kind of the issues. What drove voters? What do we know? Did anything surprise you last night?
Not at all. Just what surprised me was seeing the exit polling absolutely validate what we've been saying this whole time. Most of the pollsters that showed Kamala Harris winning showed independents breaking for Democrats and threat to democracy and abortion being really high on the list of issues. And of course, I've never seen that. Number one issue has always been the economy in our polling, and the exit polling is confirming that. And then number two is border. But it doesn't really capture the pain that people are feeling just talking about the border. Really, America's in a much, much worse place after the Biden administration. Only 37% of voters said they're better off than they were 4 years ago. Only 27% of voters in the swing states say they're safer than they were 4 years ago. And I think it was 22% said that today's children will be better off than their parents. That's absolutely horrible. So when they talk about the border and the economy, they're telling you stop the invasion, bring back the middle class, because the Democrats, in my opinion, killed it.
Now, Mark, I may be asking you to go beyond the comfort zone in which you operate as a pollster, but based upon the shifts, the trends that you saw in this cycle compared to what we saw in 2020, are we seeing like fundamental shifts that could have lasting impacts on the political landscape of America?
Oh, 100%. Now, I will tell you this is all predicated on the Republican Party reforming around the MAGA agenda, because voters overwhelmingly think the Republican Party is the party of Trump and the MAGA movement. And so Trump can't run again, so that has yet to be seen. But he picked up more Hispanic voters, more younger voters, and more black voters than he ever has. And this is a trend we've been tracking all the way from 2016. So it's not like all of a sudden they indicted him and all the people that listen to rap turned out or something like that. It's not like that. This is people fleeing the Democrat Party, and the Republicans, the Donald Trump movement, are really starting to become the core culture, the counterculture. And I think what you're seeing now is the mainstream media has jumped the shark, has lost its credibility, is losing its sway. And look at all the actors and actresses and authority figures that they threw as endorsements to Kamala Harris, and none of them moved the needle because people just don't care anymore. So I think that trend is going to continue. And of course, there are some offsets. There are the upper class suburban women who, then the sort of the boomer men who watch MSNBC, and those people are breaking more towards Harris, or did, but it's just not enough. The core of their support was the black vote and the young vote, and this just absolutely gone. Those people went to Clinton by 40 points.
So, Mark, last question for you. What is at the heart of that? Is it the connection with Donald Trump as a personality, or is it the policy that he embraced? What is it that is creating that shift, drawing people to vote for a party they've not voted for in the past?
I think that the MAGA tenets are very popular. Bidenomics was not popular. People want government shutdown, reduced spending. People want militarization of the border. They support deportation way more than amnesty. And so everything he's talking about is resonating with people. But at the end of the day, during the Biden administration, they tried to force COVID authoritarianism down people's throats. They weaponized the judicial system. They went after political opponents. People are not happy with the federal government right now. That's ultimately what it boils down to. When you talk about favorability, Harris and Trump were actually roughly kind of equal. But then if you ask, do you trust the federal government or not, only 30% of people say yes. So I feel sorry for Kamala Harris. In a different hand of cards, she might actually have won this thing, but she is the status quo candidate, and people hate status quo.
Yeah. Very interesting. We could continue the conversation, but got to move on. Mark, congratulations on the accuracy of polling this election, and we look forward to having some conversations in the future.
Absolutely. Happy to come on.
All right.